Welcome to the Homeschool High School podcast, brought to you by Seven Sisters Homeschool.com and the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network. And I'm Vicki, and I'm so excited because we have an old friend come back to visit. And we had Jonathan Brush on the podcast. It's been a few years now, and Jonathan is doing some absolutely magnificent work with Unbound. And for parents who have teens that you want to make sure are ready for life and are not wanting to have the pressure of graduating, going on to college, Jonathan has some magnificent work he's doing there at Unbound. So, Jonathan, would you say hi and tell us a little bit about yourself? And then we want to talk about the gap year and Unbound.
Absolutely. Well, Vicki, thanks for having me back. It's a pleasure and honor to be here, and
Yes.
delighted to be able to update your audience on some things happening at Unbound. I don't know that I'm particularly exciting, but if you're homeschooled, then I can tell you that you'll find that I'm pretty socially awkward because I was also homeschooled. That seems to be the big problem with homeschoolers that everybody always is worried about. And so I was a homeschool graduate, married a homeschool graduate. We have 8 children, and 4 of them have graduated from high school.
Oh.
And so we have a little bit of experience in that area. So as I tell people, what I do at Unbound is both professional and personal in terms of my own experience. So.
And you understand homeschoolers because you have been and you have walked, like both parent and living through it. So you know homeschoolers inside out. So
Yes,
that's
and
awesome.
that has been a major influence. I tell people the fact that I was homeschooled and my parents didn't let me watch TV was probably the 2 major factors in my life growing up, and has continued to pay huge dividends throughout my life.
So that's a good story. So your kids, half of them have graduated,
That's
right?
correct. Yes.
Yeah, so you already have walked through the whole process of another generation. That is so cool. So, all right. So you started an organization, and it's about gap year, and that sounds so simple. But what you have is more rich than, oh, gap year. So tell us about Unbound and what you are doing with young people.
Yeah, so we talk about Unbound and we say it's an alternative, it's a college alternative. And so we can help students, we can actually help students in high school. We have some high school curriculum for what I say is like the non-academic things, the task management, time management, leadership, communication, those kinds of things.
Hmm.
And then our flagship program is something called Ascend. And it is for post high school, or if you're homeschooled, you can do it in your senior year of high school as well. And Ascend is really interesting in that it can be used a couple of different ways. It can serve as a gap year, and students use it that way, but it can be a complete alternative to college as well. And so the program is designed to run as a 1, 2, or 3-year program, and it's designed with exit ramps at the end of each year, depending on what you need. And you can use it to earn up to 90 credits that can transfer into a target institution, or you can not earn any credits and use it to earn our own certificate. And when people say, well, what good is your certificate? That's a valid question. But the way I kind of answer that is to say, if you do 3 years with us and you earn our full certificate, then we guarantee that our graduates will be employed within 6 months, earning career level salaries, or we will refund all 3 years of the tuition. And so that's a way of us saying, yeah, we know we're a little different, and you're taking a little bit of risk going with us, except for, from my perspective, it's not much of a risk because nobody's ever requested their tuition be refunded. So it works as so people say, well, who should do it? Well, if you're looking for a gap year, certainly that will work if you're looking for a pause. If you have no idea what you want to do, one of the big things we do is we help people figure out what's next. If you are looking to, just get some credits that can transfer later, you can do that. And finally, if you're going into the trades or you're doing something you don't think requires a degree, but you're like, I'm not sure. I call them the Chick-fil-A apprentices. I'm working at Chick-fil-A, I'm doing really well, but I know I don't want to do that the rest of my life. But without college, I'm not sure how to step into the next level in terms of my career. That's where we excel.
So you've got different directions young people can go. All right. So now that's got everybody's attention. Tell us about how you started the program.
So I actually inherited the program in the sense that it was started in 2003 by some other founders. I arrived in 2010, and I arrived having worked as the director of admissions for a private selective liberal arts college. And I really had a good career there. In fact, I was on track to, get my degrees and become a vice president, a president, and all those things. And I just sat back and said, there are some things that are really discouraging and depressing to me about higher education. One, I think I'm I'm making a living asking people to make bad financial decisions because the debt is getting so extreme.
Yeah.
Two, I'm concerned on a broad level in terms of the critical thinking, particularly related to my faith in Christianity. I was watching most of higher education become very aggressive against Christianity. I didn't mind students having to come in and think about and question their ideas, but I did take exception to the kind of strong agenda to destroy somebody's faith. And then third, and this is the one that actually was the biggest one for me, but was a little hard to explain. I was watching people come into college expecting something that the college wasn't prepared and didn't want to return. So people came into college thinking college is an adult making machine. If I get my kid into college, they'll come out the other side an adult, and
Mhm.
is also a get a job free card.
Mhm.
And colleges weren't interested in either of those things. And I just thought there was a falsity about that that was really disturbing. And so I ended up going to work for this education startup. I wound up owning the company in 2020. And we got a chance to sort of take all this experience that we had and say, well, if we did want to create a program that trained young people, young adults to become full adults and to prepare them to make a difference in the world, what would it look like? And so there's this really amazing opportunity to start with a blank slate, to not have to worry about anybody's expectations and do what we knew worked. And that has been extremely exciting and rewarding and effective.
So let's say we got a parent and their young person is a junior in high school and they're going like, I don't know, college doesn't feel like the thing, or we don't know whether college or not. But what we want is our young person to be successfully prepared for adulthood. Like they need to be able to live in their own house and pay their own bills and be a good person. So tell us about what you would recommend or what you can offer to that family that's preparing. Senior year's coming, life is coming after that. What would you say Unbound has to offer for encouragement for families in that situation?
Yeah, so I would first I would frame this and I would say, look, there is a squishiness here in terms of we know that we want our young adults to become adults and to stop sleeping on our couch and sleep on their own couch, right? We want to make that transition. But there's often some real definition problems here. And so I find that people always talk about we want our kids to be successful, we want our kids to be successful. I'm not
Mhm,
against success, but success is often subconsciously defined as fame, fortune, and power.
mhm,
And so it's like, well, I want it, but the problem with that is that those ends as an ends themselves will leave you empty. We could just say that. But secondly, those things are hard. In other words, rich, famous, and powerful people are interesting because they're unusual. So we have young people who think that that's the definition of success, but most of them won't obtain that in any measurable fashion, right?
mhm,
And so you have kids who come out of high school with a lot of optimism, and that optimism often fades to cynicism, bitterness, and in extreme cases, despair. And we've got this whole system where people are like, I feel like everything's possible, but I've got this paralysis by analysis because when everything's possible, I don't know what my next step is.
mhm.
And so the first thing we do is we say we train young adults to thrive. And that gives us a chance to redefine success a little bit. And
Yeah.
then we get very specific about that. For us, that means to thrive means to accept full responsibility for your life, to
Mhm,
prioritize relationships, to serve others by being extraordinary at ordinary things so that you have a call to excellence, even if you're not going to be rich, famous, or
mhm,
powerful, to know how to create value, to
mhm,
live resiliently, and we're unapologetically Christian, so to live in light of eternity for the glory of God. And so we say, okay, if those are the definitions, now you have an idea what's going on. And people say, okay, well, how does that work? We say, well, what we're really good at is we can help a student figure out what's next. We can train them in marketable skills, and we can surround them with an extraordinary and exceptional community. So for that junior coming through high school, I'd say, do those things resonate with you? Did what I say, does that make sense with your life in terms of like, yes, that's, I'm looking for a way to make that step.
mhm,
Okay, well, in that case, know that if you buy into that, that's the key factor for you to be successful. I run a hybrid program, which means that we deliver content online, but I don't think you can get a full, rich educational experience just online. So, 4 times a year, I will fly you to an event, and that event's going to be about a week long. It's going to be very intense, and you're going to form really deep relationships there. And the lessons we're teaching you are going to really come home. And the whole program is built and crafted around doing real things. So, our first year students, the heart of the program is doing a project where we take an idea from an idea to reality. Our second year students have to take somebody else's idea from an idea to reality. Our third year students have to work in a team that takes an idea from an idea to reality. And so if you're a junior and you say, okay, that makes sense, they say, okay, oh, great. Well, check out our site, talk to us a little bit, and then we can set it up and we can then craft the program. This is where it gets really fun. We can craft the program based on what you want. You're like, I'm not sure what I want. Great. Come in for at least a year. we'll focus on the what's next part. I want to go to college eventually. Great. Come in for the first year and we'll build it so you can have credits that will absolutely transfer to what you want to do next. I don't want to go to college, but I want to be a professional. Fantastic. Come in and we will help you figure out what's next, what that looks like, help you build the specific skills that you need. And then you go into our very extensive network of alumni, and we guarantee that you'll have a job when you finish.
Right off the bat, tell me about your alumni. What are some interesting stories?
Well, I have to sort of first admit my bias here. I've worked with young adults in various capacities my entire career,
Yeah,
and I still pinch myself with the kind of students I get to work with at
yeah,
Unbound.
yeah.
They are really extraordinary students. The community is really exceptional.
Mhm.
And just to give you an idea of the connections that happened, my own son and a friend of his that he met through the program a couple years ago decided they were going to tour the country. And so they left Virginia. They went up through the Dakota, up through Michigan, the Dakotas, across to Washington State, down through California, and back through Colorado. They did a lot of backpacking and seeing national parks and stuff. But the thing that always struck me that was interesting was that their entire time they never stayed at a hotel. They stayed with Unbound families the whole way around the country. It's like that kind of
Oh,
network. And when they broke down in Montana, alumni that never met rescued them and made sure their family was repaired and they were set to go back on the road. And so that's the kind of networking that happens. And then when it comes to the alumni, two things happen. We have a branch of alumni that are entrepreneurs. So we have people that have formed companies, often with other alumni, and of course they hire people and stuff. We
mhm,
also train really good entrepreneurs, which are people that go and work for organizations, but then quickly end up moving into leadership as
mhm,
they're able to really optimize what they're doing. And so both of those things means that, when I have students get ready to graduate, I have a set of alumni who call me and say, I
mhm,
don't care who it is, and I don't need an interview. I just need you to send me your next person. It's that level of sort of trust and connection because they know what the experience was like for them. They know the kind of training that happens, and they know the kind of people that they need who are not afraid of failure, that know how to quickly and effectively master complicated information, who know how to learn. And that's the kind of folks that come into the program, and then those skills get really honed in the program.
So what I'm hearing is community formation, for the students, and that goes on even past finishing the program, and developing savvy and, like you said, thriving and, being able to figure things out, being resilient. Like, those are good skills to learn. So those are part of what you have built into the program.
Well, I think that one of the things that always frustrated me with college is that, and I always want to be a little bit cautious here. I'm actually a big fan of colleges if colleges do what they're supposed to do.
Mhm,
And there are rich academic things that happen in colleges that I'm not replicating and don't claim to be.
mhm,
But colleges have now expanded and they say that they offer this job training and skills and all these things, but they're not really set up to do that. And I'll give you a quick example. I had a student came through our program, spent 3 years with us, then went on to finish their final year at a college. And he sent me a picture of the book. And the book was about a marketing textbook. And this was 2 years ago. And the example for a social media network was MySpace. Now the point is that at that point, you're looking at like the marketing classes being taught by a professor who probably was last in the private sector 15 or 20 years ago. That has no bearing on, and so there's a kind of shutting off from the real world that happens, which is okay in certain academic disciplines. Engineering, for example, I mean, the basics of calculus and those kinds of things stay the same. Nursing programs. My second son is in a nursing program after having spent a year with us, and those programs, are constantly working with hospitals and they're getting rejuvenated with new information. There are things that are really well done at college, but what colleges are not doing very well is they're failing to understand that the world that we used to be in was an answers-based paradigm,
mhm,
meaning that the more answers you knew, the faster you could get that knowledge because knowledge was hard to obtain. You had to drive to the library, check out a book, and all those kinds of things.
mhm,
And so, from a business standpoint, the more letters behind somebody's name, the more chances that they would know information quickly. High school
mhm,
graduates are better than non-graduates, college graduates, etc. We don't live in that world anymore. We live in a questions-based paradigm where you have access to almost all the world's information at your fingertips, and you do need to have an understanding of context, but then you have to know how to sort that information, which means you have to ask good questions and you have to be wise enough to know what is real and what is not and how to apply it. And so that's a little different. And it also implies something else, which is a necessity for failure. So, we have a situation where 15, 20 years ago, you would go to a job, you would find the person who was good at the job, you would apprentice under him or her, and you would do what they did, and you would slowly climb the ladder because everything was moving pretty slow. You would make a lot of research. You would do a lot of market research before you would launch the new product and stuff like that. Businesses now are much more iterative decision making with technology that's consistently and constantly disrupting what's going on. And so AI blows everything up, and so you've got people coming in to get hired, and the boss is saying, I don't know how to do this. Do you know how to do this? And the answer is no, because nobody's done it before. So you have to have somebody that tries and fails, tries and fails, tries and fails. Oh, that's what worked. Okay. A traditional education system penalizes failure. You want to have a 4.0. Anything less is
Yes.
problematic.
Yes.
And so the real world, though, is one that you have to have a tolerance for failure to be able to figure things out. Now, in Unbound, we get to scrap all that kind of intolerance for failure and say, you're doing a project. If you fail, you can still learn from this. Also, your success is not guaranteed. And so that's what that environment and that kind of educational starting point creates a system that I think more effectively prepares students for real life because it more effectively reflects real life and the way things actually work.
I love that. We all have to face failure, and if we're going to grow, we have to be willing to get to the other side of it. And so what you are doing is training kids not to be defined by fear of failure, that success is, never having a glitchy moment, and instead ask questions and being resilient and nimble. And I'm very excited about that. So this is a very hopeful program, and young people are learning that.
Well, we have an entire, so one of the things I said to know how to thrive is to live resiliently. We have an entire event that really focuses on resilience, and we tell students about resilience is that resilience is understanding that you live in a broken, busted world, so you're not naive, but you live in light of a hope that eclipses that. And so that really becomes a core foundational part of our culture where we say, yes, it's a hopeful program in the sense that we tell students they come in, the opportunities that you have are amazing. The time that you're put in is fantastic. I am not interested in any doom and gloom stuff. Do we have challenges in this generation? Sure. We've had challenges in every generation because we've all lived in a broken, busted world post-Eden. And so you don't escape without having those. But do we have opportunities? Yes, amazing. This is a wonderful, exciting, interesting world. And one of the things I like to do is like to have students come in and say, I don't want you to be stressed out. I don't want you to be, uptight about this. I want you to know I can equip you to figure out what's next, ask good questions, and to treat this life as an adventure and as something that continues to get better each year as you go forward. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And I believe that when you train somebody to think like that, then life becomes not overwhelming, but exciting and interesting. And you embrace becoming a full adult. You don't run from it. I have so much frustration with people that are like afraid of, and I hate this term, I don't want to do adulting. I don't want to, well, first, it's not a verb. And second, you should want to become an adult. You were designed and created to step into this role. And what we get to do is equip students for that. So they step into it with a lot of excitement and a lot of just being ready and looking forward to what's next.
And even if one of the steps towards adulthood is taking a around the country, cross country adventure with a friend and networking all the way around, that is such memorable formation kind of thing.
It's so much. I mean, we know this, relationships are key, right?
Yes.
So when you feel like you are facing the world with an army at your back, it's very different than if you're facing it alone. So my second son did a year in the program and then entered nursing school, and he's doing great in nursing school and he gets on great with the people in nursing school, but there was no pressure to make nursing school his identity because he had an entire army of friends behind him who prayed for him, supported him, that he still connects with and sees and travels around the country because of his Unbound experience. So has he made friends in nursing school? Absolutely. And good friends there, but he also had the ability to sort of choose which friends he made in nursing school and not to feel like that had to provide all his identity because he already had this entire peer group behind him that was a super high quality, that was encouraging and continues to encourage him, and that he thinks he'll probably know for the rest of his life.
So wonderful way to launch. Definitely. Yeah. All right. So Jonathan, let's think about, all right, two sets of parents. One is that parent of the junior who wants to do a little exploring in senior year, and one parent has a senior this year, so they're planning for next year. For both of them, what would be an entry point into connecting with all the work you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, you can go to beunbound.us. So that's beunbound.us. That's our website. You should be able to get a really good idea of what we do just by looking at the website. And there's lots of opportunities to talk to a real person through the website in a variety of different ways. And if you do that, please know that we're only interested in people that fully understand the program and we're fully confident that we can help. So if you contact us, this is not a, we're going to try to wrestle you into a decision sales type of thing. This is very much a, we'd love to hear what you're doing. We'd love to explain what we're doing. When those two things match, then we'll talk about whether we'll enroll you in a program. And so don't be afraid to contact us directly. You can also find us, of course, we have our own podcast. You can go to all the social media stuff. And I tell students, if you want to get a feel for what the events look like, search for Be Unbound at YouTube. And we have wrap-up videos from all of our events. And after you watch a couple of those, one or two things will happen. You'll say, those are my people. Or you'll say, those people are crazy. I don't want anything to do with that. Neither one can be really helpful. And so that would be a great way to sort of figure out the next step. Or if you are maybe a leader that you have an organization and you got some people, contact us. We do things we call Thrive events all around the country. We're doing 60 of them this year. And if you can put a couple people in a room, we will show up. We will do everything from a evening session to almost a full conference for free. And we'll be able to explain some of the ideas that I talked about in this podcast, as well as, of course, give you a really good idea of what Unbound looks like and feels like.
That's so exciting. And I'll be running into Jonathan at the Delaware Homeschool Conference this year. So
looking forward to that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll put links to all of these in the show notes, and also on the YouTube version, we'll put the links in the comments so everyone can click and check things out. So Jonathan, thank you for joining us today. I just love that there are other people in the world that are investing in the soul of young people and helping them be ready for a wonderful, thriving life. So thank you so much for the work you're doing.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to seeing you in Delaware.
Yes, thanks. So this has been the Homeschool High School Podcast, brought to you by Seven Sisters Homeschool.com and the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network. Thank you to Seth Tillman for editing, and we will see everyone next week.